Do you think success is subjective or objective?
Oh, that's a great question.
Man.
And that's one we all wrestle
Yeah.
with. Um,
You know
I
where it
think,
comes out? Because I've happened to hear quite often people say, I'm an English teacher. I keep telling that to my guests just so they can get a little bit of behind why I'm sometimes bringing up these phrases. Like I keep hearing, or people tell me I'm privileged with having a lot of students. And when I talk about success with my students and having perhaps being a little slightly bit more materialistic, which is, I think, realistically some kind of part of a success, whether we like it or not. And there are those people who claim something like, oh, no, I don't need an expensive car. Why would I need it? Oh, no, I don't need an expensive phone. I'm living well without it. I don't need $1 million. I'm getting by fine without it. And there is a voice, and I've repeatedly said it on my podcast with a bunch of other guests previously. There's a voice in my head that says, how can you know? How do you know? But then it's also conflicting in myself, because I think, okay, well, not at the same time, not everything that I haven't tried should be tried. I don't need to burn my finger to know that it will hurt. So it's conflicting, right? How do you go about
yes.
that?
Well, I can say this.
Really appreciate you reaching out or me reaching out. I am kind of lost in who reached out to who, because I am lucky to receive quite a bit of messages on that wonderful platform. I like asking my guests about their experience with matchmakers. How has that been for you?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have gotten a number of requests to be on my podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but from people that obviously didn't read the profile. So we had to screen a lot of them. And Nicole is handling reaching out to a lot of people to get me on theirs. So she seems to be happy with it, which
Yeah.
matters. So it's working. It's working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have one. I have two next week from it. You and I had one person I interviewed from it that didn't work out that well.
Yeah. May I ask why?
I have a very focused podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and the person actually sold me, and I got on the interview and I asked him a couple questions. He couldn't answer them, and I went, "Yeah, this isn't going to work." Let me
Interesting. Yeah.
explain. My whole world is being multidisciplinary, being an
Right. I
expert
was
in
going to
one.
bring that up. Yeah.
And when I asked the guy, "How do your different fields blend together?" he just looked at me and said, "What?" I said,
Yeah.
"No.
Wow.
The crossover is what's important."
Right.
"Oh no, I don't have them cross over at all."
Huh.
And I said,
Wow.
"Okay, then that's not my jam. That's not what I do."
Correct.
So it
Who
was
was
kind
the guest and who was the host once again?
of I don't remember the guy's name now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. I have it's somewhere in my computer.
No, I mean, who was invited and who was the host?
Oh, it was supposed to be. I was the host,
Oh, you were the host. So
and he
he
was
and
the
you
guest.
invited him?
I invited him based on
Yeah.
everything he sent me.
Huh. Interesting.
Um,
Oh, and he probably reached out first, proposing himself as a guest.
yes, and it was funny because he actually told me, "I am trying to do 100 podcasts in a month."
Damn. Yeah,
So
that's a bold promise.
yeah, he was just really reaching out to people. So
It's interesting. Haven't you noticed being in this environment, getting into podcasting or doing it, I imagine, for quite a while? Seems like certain kind of people just are after numbers and
yes,
not that much after the quality, right?
that is 100% true. And that is, that's not me. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for numbers. I'm not looking to make a living off of doing podcasts. So for me, it's a matter of I need good quality time.
Right.
And that's what I enjoy. In fact, it's funny because I did an interview in Perth, Australia on Monday, and now you're interviewing me today. And one of my buddies looked at me and said, "Can't you interview with somebody in the U.S.?" I said,
Yeah.
I just want to interview with people that look like they're fun to talk to.
Yeah, right. So it doesn't matter where they are, correct. And it's actually probably even better that people are reaching out all over the world. Isn't that better? We've got to exploit this thing called the internet to some betterness, right?
Yes.
You've mentioned something about not doing it for a living. I'd like to jump straight into it, and you tell me if that correlates with what you teach. Do you think one should start doing something, hoping to turn it into a way to make a living, or do you think one should start barely on just fascination note and obsession and interest and curiosity, and then as a byproduct receiving the income for it? Which one do you think is more advantageous?
Um, I I'm laughing as you ask that because I believe that what you should do is start doing anything you want to do
Mm,
because it interests you. To
First and
me, it
foremost.
is about quality of life.
Mm,
It's if I want to learn something, I dive into it. The reason I'm laughing is just this weekend, my daughter, who is 30, um, laughed at me about something I was doing and said, "Yeah, everything you do starts as fun and then it
mm,
becomes a business."
mhm.
And I said, "Only if I like it. Only if I like it."
Yeah.
So I think jumping into things is about growing and becoming more than you are today, more
Mhm,
tomorrow than you are today.
mhm.
So I think people should learn and grow to be better. And that's what it's all
Yeah.
about to me.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yet, so many people seem to have found their passion, their obsession. However, they do not, for many years perhaps, seem to be able to pay their bills with that. What do you say to them? Where is the point where one should, I don't want to say quit, but then reconsider? How would you go about telling when it's time to maybe change something about what you're doing with passion?
I have a um, very strict rule that everything is a hobby until I see substantial income.
Hmm, hmm.
So, what I
Yeah.
mean by that is okay, and I'll give you an example. I don't ever believe that my artist, I don't sell my paintings.
Hmm,
I'm not going to make money painting. I got them all over my house. And my friends have them in their homes. But to me, that is a hobby.
hmm,
I will not occupy large blocks of time doing it because I know it's not going to make me money.
hmm.
Once you know that it's not going to make you money, it should not be a 24-hour a day
Right.
endeavor.
So it's a matter of how much time you spend on it.
Yes.
Right.
You have
Hmm,
to know what your, I mean, here's the deal. I got to pay my mortgage. I got to pay the bills. I can't afford to run and chase rainbows.
right.
It's got to be real. So to me, the moment I think I love something enough to want to make it a business, I need a business plan.
Hmm,
I need to start on day zero. I need to know in 6 months, in 1 year, in 5 years where I see it being. And if it's not reaching the projected income levels or projected growth,
hmm,
I have to stop it and call it quits.
hmm.
So that's just me. I do things I love, but I also know there's boundaries.
Where is a perfect starting point for a business for building a substantial income? Should one go all in, or should is it still better and more realistic and perhaps mature to have a plan B? Because that's one thing I've been thinking a lot about. These days on the internet, you can come across this romanticized idea of quitting your job, cutting all whatever is pushing you back, and then just going all in on one thing. Is that, in your opinion, better, perhaps potentially more beneficial than still balancing and keeping your main income and trying some side things?
I have seen people succeed at both. Okay. But what I think it, for me at least, the way I look at it, it is a balancing test. And I'll use an example for me. I was a lawyer. Okay. I was also a professional entertainer and magician traveling the country doing mind reading shows all over the place. And back in the early 90s, I tell everybody I was ready to quit practicing law and go all in as an entertainer. And I came up with a business plan. I came up with revenue streams, how I was going to do it. And I tell everybody my wife changed my plan with 3 words. She looked at me and said, I am pregnant.
Oh shit! Wow,
That
those
changed the
three
go.
words do change a lot, right?
Yeah, no, and it's serious because what happened
Mm-hmm.
is that pivotal moment, I realized it wasn't about me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to
Mm-hmm.
have to support a child. So when I say that, there's certain times you can go all in and there's certain times you can't. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is, what risk assessment have you done?
All
For
right,
that,
right.
there was no way I was going to support a
Mm-hmm.
child on
Mm-hmm.
the level of income I was planning on. But at the same time, um, while I was practicing law, I continued to build that business, and every ounce of my free time, when I was not in court or in my law firm,
Mm-hmm.
every ounce of my free time went into my entertainment business so that when the day came and I closed my law firm 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was in a position to be 100% all in because
Mm-hmm.
the transition was easier.
And that's what you mean by when those facets collide, I think,
Yes.
right? Sooner or
Yeah.
later, one grows into another, and miraculously, somehow they all grow together, combine, and right.
Well, and it's funny, but I also say there's another side to when they all collide. For instance, when I was a lawyer, one of the things that made me good about being a lawyer is I had been a general contractor. So I knew how to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
And when I built my case in court, I saw it as the foundation. I saw the structure. I saw the finish work. I saw how I was building my case the same way I built a house.
Mm-hmm. Because of
And
thinking strategically, long term, right?
yeah, so the two careers came together because the way I thought was the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's funny, but now when I'm on stage speaking, I'm influenced by the painting that I do
Mm-hmm.
because I see the visual art of what I'm doing on stage. I see it coming together. So my comment is everything I do blends into everything else,
Mm-hmm.
and I learn from everything. I'm a better lawyer because I was a contractor. I'm a better speaker because I'm an artist, and I'm a better strategic advisor because I'm a private investigator.
Plenty of things
Everything
are
works.
yet to be discussed. Yeah, that those titles, those they definitely sound promising. I'd like to get into it. Let me ask you a bit of a different question, maybe something that would contradict perhaps a little bit what you said. That are
Sure.
there any elements of your life that are not that complementary in terms of their unity? Are there any aspects of your life that do not blend into everything else? And how do you go
Um,
about them?
sure. I'm smiling because I actually have a business card that says Joe Curcillo, the world's worst guitarist.
Hmm.
I love playing guitar, but I don't play well and I don't
Yeah,
play
neither
as
do I.
often as I should
Yeah.
because for me, even though I love music, I love playing, it has never blended into anything else enough to make
Mm,
it essential.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I'm sitting here as I talk to you, looking at my collection of guitars on my wall,
mhm.
going, I have so many guitars, I should be good at it. But I have never found a place for it where it fit into everything else that I do. So that is purely a passion of love, and that's all it
Well,
is.
still, I don't believe you play so bad if you've got a couple of guitars. A person who's got a collection cannot play bad.
No, but you understand, I've never become
Mm.
an expert at it.
Right, right, right.
I'm not getting called to play with the Led Zeppelin or anything soon.
Mhm.
So,
Do you blame yourself sometimes for that, for not reaching a certain level in something that you're passionate about? I feel permanently guilty for my guitar is just gathering the dust.
every day,
Yeah,
every day. I can, even last night, I got up to go to bed. I looked at the guitar sitting by
yeah,
my chair, and I went, I
yeah.
should have picked.
Lonely, right?
Yeah, I should have
Yeah.
picked it up, but I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an everyday
Sometimes you're
thing.
just passing it by, you want to touch it, just pull some strings,
Yeah,
right? Just reminded that you're still there and you remember of it.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So mind reader, isn't that one of the things how you
Yes.
Name
Yes.
yourself, right? And in other words, a mentalist, right?
Yes.
And I've happened to hear this term a couple of times. I'll be more than happy to hear what it exactly means in a bit more elaborative
Sure.
way.
Um, okay. I the way I define what I do is I walk on stage, and 1 hour later, the audience will be convinced that I know everything they're thinking.
Wow.
How do I accomplish that? I accomplish it by having a very broad knowledge of human nature,
Mm,
human psychology. I say body language, but more so, it's called human response to me. How do people
mm,
communicate? And then also, too, a long history of being a magician. So
mhm,
I know how to set that up and make it happen. Um, so there's all kinds of definitions of mentalist. Some people say it's using all of my senses to pretend that I have another sense.
mm,
Um, but for me, no, it's absolute stagecraft, human psychology,
mhm.
and being a
Nothing
magician.
magical.
Yeah.
Mhm. Interesting. How do those performances usually go on? Do people ask you certain questions? I imagine somebody who claims to know, to have the ability to read mind gets
No, no, no.
tested quite often.
I don't answer questions.
Yeah.
It is a staged show where I set up what's going to happen next.
Uh-huh.
I bring volunteers up and I have them thinking of things and doing
Yeah.
things, but I don't open the door to ask questions. I don't speak to the dead. I don't tell people, I don't predict futures. I don't do any of
Yeah.
that.
I've had a woman on my show who claims to know how to talk to the dead and,
Yeah.
a medium, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I have two
Uh,
friends of mine that do that for a living, and
yeah.
I always tell them that's not what I do.
Right.
Yeah, I do it for
Uh,
fun.
so it's more of a show, right? A well planned, a well staged show.
Yes.
Um, what is the final purpose of a show like that? To impress people, I imagine, right?
No, no, I don't care about impressing people. I want them to have fun.
Yeah, just to have
That's
fun.
why I structure
Yeah.
it as a show, because I want them to feel like they're the star of the show, not me.
Mhm.
When I bring a woman up on stage and she's thinking about the first little boy she fell in love with as a child, in school, I want her to have great memories of that moment. I
Mhm.
want the audience to be entertained by my interaction with her.
Mhm.
And I want her to walk off that stage remembering her childhood and remembering that I'm the guy that made her
Mhm. Mhm.
reminisce and dream about the old days.
And you
So,
know about her memories of what she was thinking about beforehand, I suppose, right? So somehow
I
do you
will.
run a conversation that gets revealed?
That's a difficult question for me to answer because
Yeah.
it's convoluted. So I don't really go
Right.
there in interviews
Right. Right. Sure.
because it's
Yeah.
a process.
Yeah. For multiple reasons, I suppose.
Yeah,
Right. Not
I,
least financial of them. Right.
exactly. I get paid for my
Yeah.
secrets.
Right, right, sure. Every good magician keeps his secrets. You've seen
Exactly.
that film, The Prestige, with
Yes,
yeah, must be one of your favorite, isn't it?
it's very good. I like it.
Yeah, pretty good. I've been intending to read the book for quite a long time and still never done
The
it.
book's very good.
Yeah, you've read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay. Good. Now, cross-disciplinary thinking. How did that come about? How long ago did you sort of dive into it, and how do you
sure.
go about that now? How does it blend into your life more
Well,
explicitly?
I'll tell you, as of September, it's 1 year.
Hmm.
My I was let me say this: I was a speaker. I was a corporate advisor. I have several books on the market. I was speaking about them, but then I met with a business advisor about a year ago, and he looked at me and said, "You do realize you're an expert in more than one field, and maybe that is what you need to think about."
Hmm.
And he said, you can go out and talk about leadership, you can talk about communication, but
Hmm.
aren't you more than that? And I said,
Hmm.
don't know. I mean, I was a little skeptical.
Hmm.
But then I started to analyze everything I do. And I started to realize, like I said earlier, the crosses between my different careers. And then I started to look at some of the greatest inventions of all times,
Mhm.
and realize the people that created things were people stepping out of their field.
Mm.
So, for instance, an example: when I was a kid, there was a TV show. Paul Winchell was a ventriloquist,
Mm.
and he had a ventriloquism dummy named Jerry Mahoney. The guy was great. I mean, it was a great entertaining show. He was also the voice of Tigger on Winnie the Pooh. And I was
Mm.
fascinated by the guy. And then all of a sudden, he just gave up the entertainment industry.
Mm.
And he eventually connected with Dr. Heimlich, the guy from the Heimlich maneuver. And
Mm.
Paul Winchell and Heimlich patented the
Mhm.
very first artificial
Wow.
heart.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nothing to do with the ventriloquism world.
Yeah, yeah, quite a
You know,
change, right? Quite a
yeah,
turn.
and he stepped outside of his world and saw the medical world from a perspective that doctors didn't.
That's
And
cross-disciplinary thinking, right?
yes, he brought
Mm.
his technical ability with puppets literally into the medical world and was influenced something completely different.
Do you
Um,
think? Yeah, sorry, but that just this story tells me of once again. It reminds me the importance of bumping into the right person in the right time, because that it feels like the person who asked you that fundamentally important question, right? That person played a big part in your life. So yeah,
yeah.
having a right person in the right time is all of it, right? It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And we don't see ourselves the way other people do. And I know so many people that I think could be more than they are, but they don't step back and look at who they are. They don't step
Mm.
back and look at how they got there. And sometimes you just have to listen to other people because somebody's going to give you some wisdom
Mhm.
that will change your life.
Mhm.
And I know one of a young lawyer in town that I'm helping said to me one day, "You should just be a professional mentor. You're really
Mhm.
good at telling people what they should think."
Mhm.
And the truth of the matter is, I'm not afraid to tell people that I see something different in them.
Mhm.
And I hope they chase it. If they don't, no skin off my back. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's something we all need to do is look at people and be willing to help them. And people need to
Mhm.
be willing to take the help.
First and foremost, you can't help anybody who doesn't wish to be helped. So, do you mentor now?
I have, yeah, I mean, I'm okay. Let's face reality. I'm 63 years old. I am a father of two daughters. They are both young professionals. My wife is a judge and has a great career. And I look at it going, I need people to listen to me because otherwise I'll get
Mhm.
bored. So if I know
Mhm.
young people are looking for help, I love helping them. It's just
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
thing. I love it. So I have friends of mine that'll reach out and, hey, I haven't seen you in a number of years. You taught me in law school. Can you help me?
Mhm.
Or you taught
Mhm.
me at the police academy. Can you help me? And
Mhm.
yes, I jump in and I love helping people get better.
What does it take, or how long does it take for you to understand what's up with the person? Let's say it's a first meeting. Does it take a bit of time, or do you immediately see certain things?
Well, that now we're getting back to the concept of being a mentalist.
Yeah, right, right. Okay.
And I would also say that I spent 30 plus years in courtrooms questioning witnesses and picking juries.
Mhm.
So I built a career out of analyzing people very quickly.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm very fortunate in that respect that when I meet with people, I have a fairly innate ability to determine what their problems are.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not my place at that moment to tell them. So I have to give it time until they're ready to hear it.
And sometimes they never are, I
No.
imagine some
And if,
people. So that brings me to another question. Sometimes I feel like in my own life, it's happened quite a bit. It's like I feel certain proclivity and tendencies towards doing something exciting, but at the same time, the routine, but I don't mean the routine in a negative meaning, because routine is routine. If you love whatever you do, and yes, it is a routine, but nonetheless it brings you pleasure. So, but nonetheless, having a pretty well structured and balanced life kind of prevents me from jumping onto another wagon. And I'd like to know your opinion, if you think that one must still force himself to try new things, to go out of his way and risk it a little bit. Or do you think, if your life seems to be all right, it's not legendary, unfortunately, but you're relatively satisfied with what you've got, and you feel this natural resistance towards trying other things, more things that are exciting per se, but you still feel resistant. Do you think you need to overcome that resistance and still give it a shot? Or do you think if you feel resistant, don't you think that resistance also tells you about something? And maybe it's better to listen to that resistance, if I'm not sounding too obscure and blurry.
No, no. And I think some people, I want to say, some people should listen to the resistance, because here's the problem. When the resistance that you have internally is that loud, you are going to be your own worst enemy moving
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
You're going to undermine what you're doing. You're going to sabotage yourself. You have to get that resistance under control and identify the source of it, though, because
Hmm.
it may be founded in reality, but it may not be.
Hmm.
Um, I've always believed that I needed to be more than I
Hmm.
am. I don't ever stop that belief. I have always in my life looked back on every day and asked myself, what did I learn today that I
Hmm.
didn't know yesterday?
Hmm.
And I ask that question to myself constantly.
Is it specifically about knowing or doing, as well as
No,
achieving, probably? Yeah.
it's learning. So it's
Yeah.
some doing, it's some understanding, it's everything.
Hmm.
I might not do something every day, but I always learn something new.
Hmm.
And eventually the things that I learn, become something that I do.
Hmm.
I'll give you a funny example. Um, I started to see people on the internet making epoxy tables with inlaid wood and clear epoxy, and they call them live edge tables.
Hmm.
And I would see that stuff, and I started to learn about it,
Hmm.
and I had never done it.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, one day, I jumped on Etsy and bought a bunch of olive wood from Turkey, and
Hmm.
it's sitting in a box, and I got all the epoxy back here. And at some point, I will do. I
Hmm.
know I
Hmm.
will do, probably in the fall.
Hmm.
But it was something where I learned enough over
Hmm.
time that I want to say I hit a wall. I learned so much that if I didn't
Hmm.
take action, I would have been
Hmm.
frustrated with myself.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
got everything together to make it happen. And I'm going to make tabletops.
And it's almost a mysterious process how you dive into something so fascinatedly that, yeah, not trying it yourself is not an option, it feels like, and maybe
Exactly.
a part of you has known all the way that sooner or later you're going to try it. It's like,
Yeah. As my wife says, somebody said to my wife the other day, "You're so calm. How do you live with him?" And her comment was, "Oh, I have to be calm because I never know what direction he's going next."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Well, that's that counterbalance that a lot of people
Yes.
say is quite essential and necessary in relationship. Although that's also questionable, because some people say that it's better to be, if both of them are absolutely identical, then the chances of building a family and long-lasting relationships is the highest. Some say that it's you got to be different. What do you believe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, 33 years together, we are very different, but very compatible.
Yeah. Yeah. So compatibility is what matters.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
We
like looking
balance.
in one direction, right?
Yeah. We balance each other very well. So,
Does intuition play a big part in your life, I imagine?
that's an interesting question. And I love the way you phrase that.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is, um, I actually have done seminars, and I believe intuition is incredibly important. But usually, a man asks me, "Do you think instinct is important?" Because
Mm.
men call it instinct, women call it intuition, and I'm a man who
That
calls it
might be due
intuition.
to my English, to be
No, but
honest.
no, but it's okay because I'm a man that calls it
Yeah.
intuition. So I was
Okay.
very happy
Okay.
that you
Yeah.
phrased it that way, because I believe that the more you know, the more apt you are to act correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And in if I can say from cognitive psychology, if we talk about what
Mm-hmm.
intuition is your ability to predict a future event or
Mm-hmm.
predict what's going to happen based on what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the more knowledge you have, the
Mm-hmm.
easier it is for you to act on your intuition, and it's also easier to adapt to it and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you second guess it sometimes that it's a big mistake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yet
intuition
sometimes
is
no second guessing is also could be a problem, right? So it's
yes,
always
yeah,
two side
no, but
coin.
intuition to me is a culmination of everything you've ever learned and ever done,
Mm-hmm.
helping you make a decision about what to
Mm-hmm.
do next or what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're back to that cross disciplinary. The more you
Mm-hmm.
do,
Mm-hmm.
the more experience you have to make a right decision.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you hone that skill of intuition? Do you work on it specifically, or is it just or having a sharp intuition rather a byproduct of every experiences you've had?
that is a good question.
Man, I'm impressing myself, I guess, huh?
No, and I guess I never thought about it. I always said I just have intuition, but I guess the answer is I probably unconsciously work on it. But I
Mm.
also think I worked on it as you asked it. I'm answering honest. I think I worked on it a lot when I was a young lawyer.
Hmm. Mm.
Meaning,
Consciously or somehow
well,
indirectly?
no, I think I did consciously, but I don't think I realized what I was doing. And what I mean by that is I was taking very heavy notes about every juror I ever put on a jury.
Hmm.
I wanted to know what they did for a living, what they ate, where they lived, how they acted. And then I would get a verdict and analyze who was on my jury.
Hmm.
And I started to realize how certain people behave and certain people act. But I was doing it more so to become a better trial lawyer. And now, as
Sure.
you asked that question, I realized no,
Hmm.
I was honing my ability to pick the right people and my
Hmm.
ability to be intuitive about who I had on my jury. Um, so I would say no. I think I did consciously work on it, but I didn't
Hmm.
realize it.
Do you think people should?
Do what?
Do you think people should work consciously, actively on their intuition, or is it?
Oh, yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
think, or I think you should actually. I hate to say it, I think people sometimes need to just take a risk and trust their intuition because
Hmm.
their gut's going to tell them what to do.
Hmm.
Their gut's going to tell them what's right and what's wrong.
Most often in a tricky situation, it feels like you kind of know what you want. It's like I've always thought to myself, some people kind of defer anything to a coin, to flipping a coin. And I feel like all those times I flipped a coin, as irrational and maybe unmasculine as it sounds, while the coin was in the air, I already knew which side I wanted to see. So
Absolutely.
that, yeah, like there's something in you that knows somehow. You just need to reach that thing.
And by the way, we do that with other people when we ask them what we should do
Hmm.
next.
Hmm.
Or when I
Hmm.
say to
Hmm.
people, "Oh, where do you want to go to dinner tonight?" I already know where I want to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
just hoping they say the same thing.
Right.
Um, but we have a decision, and sometimes you know, we need to act on it. But it's funny because we do make a decision, and then we influence somebody else's answer by what we want.
Yeah.
We then justify it as we didn't make the decision.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Sounds pretty tricky of us. What is, do you think, the most common reason why people are not encouraged or afraid or simply refuse to go after their dreams?
Fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
Fear of the unknown. I always say that When people look at their future, it's like looking into an abyss, and they're afraid to jump. Um, that fear of unknown, that fear of the future, um, that will destroy people. I
Worrying
mean,
too much of what's going to happen.
yeah, and to me, look, I failed a lot in my life. So for me, failure is just another day. And I've succeeded more than I failed. Thank God, I'm still sitting here. But it's to me a matter of being willing to be wrong once in a while. Being wrong is not the end of the world. It's not where all of a sudden, oh, I was wrong. The world's all looking at me. People worry about what people think, and they don't make the right decisions. Um, just sometimes you've got to take a risk. And I always jokingly say to people, yeah, I want you to try new things. I'm not telling you to do open heart surgery on someone tomorrow. That's not the point. It's just sometimes you got to take a risk. And if you got a dream, you got to follow it. You know, start working on it now and start to see how it feels, see how people react to it. Um, I wrote, I want to say I wrote my first four books while I had good paying jobs. And when my books came out, different business opportunities that came to me. Um, my new book I am writing without a regular job, but it's because I got to the point where I can.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love telling people I never wanted to be a writer. I never had a desire to write anything. But nonetheless, I just keep writing books now because it's just something I love doing.
Right.
And
Probably also flows out of love for reading, I imagine.
yeah, and well, and I also I read a lot, and I always felt like I had nothing to say. And I think that's what's funny is I wrote a couple books. My one book, Getting to Us, came out 5 years ago, self-published, selling it literally sitting in my office, and I've sold over 16,000 copies of
Wow.
it. And
Nice.
I'm fascinated every time one sells on Amazon, going, people want to read what I
Yeah,
wrote.
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Yeah.
or like
I
you
think
even
it's
interviewed.
all the most successful people. They kind of feel like that. I feel. I think everybody feels like that. Even those objectively super successful, they will always feel like that.
Well, and I mean, frankly, I was going to say, I'm honored that you want to even talk to me because, I always say I'm a 63-year-old baby boomer, but I got a lot of experience and I can tell people where there's a lot of bad things happening and you got to avoid them. So that's where I am.
Do you think success is subjective or objective?
Oh, that's a great question.
Man.
And that's one we all wrestle with.
Yeah.
Um,
You know
I
where it
think,
comes out? Because I've happened to hear quite often people say, I'm an English teacher. I keep telling that to my guests just so they can get a little bit of behind why I'm sometimes bringing up these phrases. Like I keep hearing, or people tell me I'm privileged with having a lot of students. And when I talk about success with my students and having perhaps being a slightly bit more materialistic, which is, I think, realistically some kind of part of a success, whether we like it or not. And there are those people who claim something like, oh, no, I don't need an expensive car. Why would I need it? Oh, no, I don't need an expensive phone. I'm living well without it. I don't need $1 million. I'm getting by fine without it. And there is a voice, and I've repeatedly said it on my podcast with a bunch of other guests previously. There's a voice in my head that says, how can you know? How do you know? But then it's also conflicting in myself, in because I think, okay, well, not at the same time, not everything that I haven't tried should be tried. I don't need to burn my finger to know that it will hurt. So it's conflicting, right? How do you go about
yes.
that?
Well, I can say this. When you say that about people saying, I don't need $1 million, I don't need a new car. Here's the thing. That person, if they believe that, then they're happy. Okay. But that comes back to the original question you started with, which is success objective or subjective? Okay. here's the issue. When someone says that to me, my conclusion is that they define success as safety.
Hmm.
I'm in a safe place,
Hmm.
therefore I am successful.
Which is kind of legit for some people,
Yes,
right?
no,
Right.
100%. No, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Hmm.
that's an acceptance of, if that's where you're safe and that's how you define success,
Hmm.
I praise you for it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But there's people like me
Hmm.
who, the minute I feel safe,
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel like I'm not doing something.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Or you feel that something is coming for your safety,
Yes.
right? Something is on radar all the time.
Yeah.
I've been making pretty decent income, but I'm always anxious because I feel like sooner or later I'm gonna lose it. It feels like I haven't lost it in quite a period, but I always have this nagging feeling that I'm losing it sooner or later. And maybe, do you think it's better living that way? I mean, who would you rather be? Those kind of guys who are happily safe, or those who are anxiously happy? You know what I mean?
I don't think I have a choice.
Yeah, you
I am
can't
the
change yourself,
anxiously
right?
happy one. I always tell people, am I successful? Yes. Am I
Hmm.
successful enough? No.
Hmm. Oh, for sure not.
Because
Yeah.
every day I redefine success.
Hmm.
Every time I hit a milestone, I push the bar further.
Wouldn't it be absolutely scary to wholeheartedly claim that you are absolutely successful? I don't imagine what should happen to my life for me to say something like that.
I'm afraid it would be over.
Mm. Do you think it will be at one point like that in our life?
Honest answer, I hope I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope I'm this way till my dying breath.
Mhm, mhm,
Will I ever become? I'm smiling. Okay, I'm dual citizen of the U.S. and Italy,
mm.
and I always tell my wife that I want to move to southern Italy and open a coffee shop with a broken coffee maker, so I can just tell everybody, "Sorry, no coffee today," and sit on the porch and watch the mountains. Um, but I don't know that I could actually do that.
Yeah.
That's one of my running
But you're gonna
jokes.
have to fix that coffee machine sooner or later, right?
No, but
You
I've
wouldn't
always
allow
said that's
yourself.
my deal. I want to retire. Just it's broken. I can't make you coffee. And have nothing to do. But I
No,
don't
that
know that
sounds
I
like
would.
a good plan for retirement, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I
Yeah.
just don't think I'd ever get there. But I just don't think I can.
What was your first book about?
My very first book was about entertainment. It was written for the entertainment industry, for
Mm,
magicians, and it was called "Performance on Trial: the Case for Better Entertainment."
mm,
It was a very limited book. I only printed 500 copies, sold it out, and moved on.
mhm,
Um, but that was focused to that industry.
mhm,
And it was an application of how a trial lawyer tries a case,
mhm.
and teaching a magician how to present their show using the same set of rules.
And you said it didn't do that well, did it?
Oh, no, no,
Like
no. It did perfect.
500.
It was something I did as a labor of love. I printed 500
Yeah,
copies and said, I'll never do another one run.
right.
When it sold
Okay.
out, I was happy and moved on. I never
And
intended
I've
to.
I've had a couple of authors, self-published authors, and I always like asking them how they recovering financially from self-publishing. And I remember one person kind of got a little bit offended, said that it's a bit too personal. So if you answer like that, I understand it. But is it too financially unreasonable to self-publish? Because that's one thing that's been on my radar, and I think it's the only way if one wants to publish a book that doesn't have some kind of public exposure
Mhm.
previously. Yeah, do you think it's too unreasonable financially for yourself to
No,
self-publish? No.
no. That book was different. That was done for a specific industry. But then I have three more books that are all self published.
Yeah.
And the reason I chose self publishing is they were vehicles to get me on stage as a speaker.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
were vehicles to get me in the door to be a consultant or strategist.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to say, even though getting to us sold 16,000 copies, it wasn't about the number of copies. it was about the amount of money being an author generated.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
being an author made me the authority on a topic.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would rather be paid $10,000 to stand on stage and speak about my
Hmm.
book
Hmm.
than I would to sell 10,000 copies of
Right,
my book.
right, right.
So financially, it's what you do with it. Um, and my books were written as self help management leadership books. If you're writing a fiction book, that might be a different answer, but I've never
Mm.
considered that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, the finances are what is the book for and what do you intend to do with it?
Right. So, do you read fiction, perchance?
I have not for a long time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not something I've read
right.
in a long time.
Do you look up to
Occasionally,
anybody
w-
virtually online? Do you have any examples? Any examples of leadership? Anybody from your sphere? Do you, being where you are, who you are, do you look up to anybody? And most importantly, do you believe it is important to have an example to follow, virtual,
sure.
perhaps?
It's interesting. I was just having this discussion the other day, which is all through my life, I had people that were, I want to say, older than me, more
Hmm.
experienced than me, who I looked up to and I considered to be my mentors.
Hmm.
And it's funny because the discussion I was having the other day is the people that I look up to now are my counterparts and peers
Hmm.
in different areas of my life where I work with them every day.
Hmm.
And they're not people that are older than me, people that are above me, people that are whatever. They're people at my level where we all contribute to each other and support each other. In
Hmm.
fact, before I was on this interview with you, I was talking to someone I consider to be um, someone I learn from every day.
Hmm.
He's about 20 years younger than me, but a genius. And every time I talk to him, I learn something. So it's kind of fun being at this age and realizing that I
Hmm.
can learn from younger people just as much
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
what I used to think of. But on the other hand, I don't know that I ever thought I'd be on this end of the spectrum.
Well, one would say that for older person, it's actually critically important to keep constant communication with somebody younger, so that his spirit remains younger. You
Yes.
know.
I have one friend of mine who I work a lot with, and is a lawyer. And her running joke is her job in life is to stand behind me and say, "Your age is showing."
Wow.
She
Okay,
tells
that's
everybody,
yeah,
or I'll be talking to someone and she'll literally be standing there and go, "Boomer." And
yeah,
it's just a reminder you're talking like an old man again.
yeah. Wow, quite a responsibility she's got.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that
interesting.
happens. I mean, it's okay though. It's kind of funny. It's like,
Yeah.
I
I
try
think
to
you need
learn.
her a lot, right? I
I
mean, what
need,
she's doing.
I need everybody in my life a lot. I've learned as much from my daughters as they have from me.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's me. It's to me, everything's a learning experience. Some
Isn't that
people
like a
are,
beautiful life cycle? When you become a
yeah,
grandparent, I don't know what it means, but people say that those people who become grandparents, they all of a sudden go younger because they remember being a parent, and it's like a beautiful life cycle and gives them more life power.
there is one caveat to that.
Mhm.
You feel younger and excited when they're there and they're playing with it, but the minute they
Mm.
leave,
Mm. You
you
return.
realize how they wore you out and you're not as
Oh,
young as you used to
yeah.
be.
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a 2-year old and a 3-year old grandson. And it's awesome. It's awesome. So
Nice. So you do not discourage young people from having, I don't want to say idols because that's a little bit of a abused term, but somebody to look up to, you quite supported.
I think they should.
Hmm.
And I think the reason is that is the people that we meet are the people that will help us grow and become something different.
Only
My
those we meet.
my mentor, let me share. My mentor was a speaker. His name was Charlie Tremendous Jones. And Charlie was famous for a simple quote, which is, "You will be the same person in 5 years that you are today, except for two things: the books you read and the people you meet."
That's beautiful. I like it.
And
Yeah.
Charlie always said that. So to me, what you're learning from other people in writing and in person, that is what makes you better.
Mm.
That is what changes everything. And, I laugh and I embrace what I call the younger mindset, which is, yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff on TikTok, but
Oh, hell yeah.
you got to go deeper. You got to really
Hmm.
meet some people that are not superficial influencers and get some real people to help guide you. And that's the future. Learn from their mistakes. They may not be. I look. I tell everybody I talk. I may not be right all the time, but I'm going to tell you how bad you're going to get hurt if you jump off a cliff.
Hmm.
Because if it's a cliff I've jumped off, I'll warn you.
Right. Of
But at
course.
the same time, I'm also the guy that'll go to the bottom and try to catch you because I don't want to see you get hurt. So,
Yeah, that's
you know,
good. That's good to
that's what a
know
good mentor
people
does.
around you.
Yeah.
Do you think, from this perspective, the internet is totally useless? Do you think it only
Oh,
works with those in your circle?
oh no,
No.
I live and
Do you
breathe
think
on.
I'm doing the right thing with reaching out to people who are wiser, smarter, wealthier than me via this podcast?
I think that's why I agreed to do it because I admire that you're doing it. That's why I'm honored to be talked to. I think that is a very important thing. I mean, the internet to me has opened up a world that didn't exist when I was your age. It didn't. And people that don't embrace it um, are making a major mistake.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so.
I mean, okay, I take it. I'm a boomer, but I can tell you right now, I was one of the first people to download and get on ChatGPT
Wow, look at
and
you!
use
Wow,
it. I mean,
nice.
last
Yeah,
November, it was bated breath
right,
waiting for the
right,
release
right.
because I had to master it and find out what it could
Yeah.
do for me.
Well,
Uh,
that's that almost childish curiosity that some older people manage, luckily, to preserve. Right, that works
yes.
miracles
Oh,
for
yeah.
them.
No, and it is. It is a childhood curiosity, but it is also blended with the wisdom because to
Hmm.
me, okay, I know Chat GPT is going to be wrong as much as it's right.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
I laugh because I've seen some of the stuff it makes up and it's all crap.
Yeah, yeah, me
But
too. Me too.
it's great for a creative process.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I have an
Powerful.
idea, I'll just type in, "Tell me what you think about this."
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I'll read what it said and it'll get my mind thinking about
Hmm.
something else.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I think the internet, there are tools available to us today that, oh God, I wish I had 30 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know where I would be if I would have been lost in some of it. But also too, and I laugh, but I have to say, I opened my very first law firm in 1990, and then I went back to government. But I opened a law firm, and in 1990, my law firm was computerized.
Wow.
And then when I
Yeah, one
opened
of the
my
first on the
major law
front
firm,
row.
and yeah, then when I opened my law firm in '97, it took me 3 years, and by 2000, everybody thought I was nuts because I was basically paperless. So
Wow.
I'm a geek,
Wow.
but that's me. I mean, it's like I embrace technology because I think it makes us better if we use it correctly.
What is the difference, practical, tangible difference between having a person that you look up to in your physical environment versus one on the internet? With both, you can directly communicate. I'm not talking about watching a video and having a celebrity as your inspiration. How would you define the practical differences between these two cases? Why is one better and other is less desirable?
I don't believe that's true.
You think there's no difference?
No, I think human interaction. Um, I mean, you and I have been speaking for about an hour, and you've had me think about some things that I would not have thought about. And yesterday, I spent an hour with somebody that I consider to be a mentor, and I walked away and got nothing out of it. No, I think that the internet has given us a chance to bond with people all over the place. I mean, one of my
Mm-hmm.
best friends is in Brisbane, Australia. And every Wednesday, he and I connect. We used to connect on Skype. Now we do it on
Mm-hmm.
Zoom, and we
Mm-hmm.
just talk. And I think, frankly, he is more important to me than some of the people I see every day in life because he's somebody
Mm-hmm.
that I've learned from. So, yeah, I'm trying to answer your question and thinking it through while I ramble. But no, I think human interaction and connection is important, period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's better, worse, or anything else.
I used to hold an opinion that still like physical interaction prevails, but then basically right now I've kind of reached the conclusion that strangely and surprisingly the internet might actually be even better
Okay.
in because you know how they say you don't want to meet your idol because once you meet you understand that they are human, right?
Yes.
So maybe in that regard it's actually even better to have a YouTube person or somebody you chat or you talk virtual like that. My best friend of all life, I've never met him personally, he unfortunately passed away, but the connection that we had was, it was beyond imagination.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so that's interesting, yeah, that
Yeah.
made me
And
feel
by
a
the
bit
way,
better.
what I would say a distinction is, um, and is as a business person looking to get work, I can sell myself better in person than I can on the internet,
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
but I can learn from both equally as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so
You
there are
know,
still certain aspects that
yeah.
vary. Hmm.
I'd rather be at a live cocktail reception than online if I have to meet people that I want to work with.
Yeah, right.
But that's a different relationship.
Do you think one actively seeks a mentor, or do you think it should happen almost miraculously? Like a lot of beautiful things in our life, they just come to us.
I think we should accept both.
Yeah.
I have had mentors that I tracked down. I
Huh.
have had mentors that, what's that old saying? The student is ready, the teacher will appear,
Right comes. Hmm. Hmm.
and I've had that happen. Um, and I think as I sit here, I say probably two of my biggest mentors in life. One was the gentleman I just mentioned, Charlie Jones, who I knew where he lived. He lived locally. So I reached out to him to have breakfast. I tracked him down, told him I wanted to be his friend and have him as my mentor. But then at the same time, I was a young lawyer and a judge called me. I
Hmm.
went up to his chambers after I had been in court all day and I said, "Yeah, what's the matter?" And he said, "I think you're somebody that I can help."
Hmm.
And he became one of my greatest mentors. And until he died,
Hmm.
um, just a great guy to me, always there for me. So one I sought out, the other one found me. And they
Hmm.
were the two
Hmm.
biggest mentors I have.
Hmm.
Both of them have passed now, but um, that's what happens when you find older
Yeah.
people to support
Right.
you.
Right. Right.
They're
Yeah.
not
There is
immortal.
this.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah. 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 Unfortunately, that's quite a surprise. Is it essential to be friendly with your mentor, to be friends with him?
Yes,
Yeah. Mm.
yes, I believe so. That is the difference to me between a teacher and a mentor.
Mm.
And I know I split hairs, so let me do
Hmm.
it. To me, a teacher is someone that you are directly learning from, someone that is teaching you a skill, sharing something with you, and a friendship relationship is not necessary.
Hmm.
A mentor, I believe, goes much deeper
Hmm.
than teaching
Hmm.
you. It's a sharing experience, and I think there has to be a level of friendship in order to make it valuable.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because I can learn from a teacher without ever trusting the teacher
Hmm.
because it's teaching hard skills. A mentor, no, they're teaching me a lot more than that. They're teaching me
Hmm.
how they react to things, how they behave. And I need that authenticity of friendship where they can be honest with me.
Should a mentor display vulnerability, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because otherwise, I mean, if I didn't expose vulnerability, I'd be fake.
Hmm.
I mean, um, I'm laughing, but it's sort of like somebody said something to me yesterday. We were on a Zoom call, and they said to me, "Have you ever tried to clean up your background?" And I said, "No, I'm authentic. This is how I live.
Hmm.
I don't do anything fake."
I don't see no
And
particular problem with the background. It's
no, but you understand. Somebody said to me, "You got all this stuff there," and
mm,
I'm like, "No, but that's just who I am."
mhm,
Because to me, I am who I am, and I don't hide it.
mhm,
Um, I have a messy office, and I'm happy in it because that's how I create.
mhm, mhm,
And to me, I'm not afraid of being vulnerable. I'm not afraid of being, oh, well, Joe once failed at this.
mhm.
Yeah, so what? I did. You know, um, it is what it is. It's how we learn.
Do people often refer to you asking a straightforward question about how to become considerably more successful in their life?
I have had that question, yes.
Yeah.
And
What would you answer to that question?
yeah, my answer to that is you have to be happy being you.
Hmm.
You have to ask yourself what you want to do, and you have to follow your dream.
Hmm.
Because if you're sitting here in 5 years in the exact same spot you are in now, and
Hmm.
you're asking me that question, that means you don't want to be in this spot.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have to change, and it's about you.
Hmm.
And I've had people say to me, "Well, what was it I want to do next?" I don't
Hmm.
know. I'll help you figure that out. We can talk about it. Let's have a beer and discuss what you want to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, all right, if it's serious, we'll have a cigar and a tequila. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's
Oh, you love
it.
cigars, don't you?
Oh yes, I love
Yeah.
my cigars.
I used to have. I don't think I'm getting into pipe. Do you smoke pipe?
No, I had a
Yeah.
pipe for years.
Really? Yeah. Quit
I
that?
still have pipes in my. I have a little lounge in my basement here that I have my
Oh,
pipes and my
nice.
cigars in there. And
Oh, wow. Wonderful. How
yeah,
many pipes do you have?
huh?
How many pipes do you have?
I think I have
Quite a
about
few.
5 or 6 now. I used
Yeah.
to have about
Nice.
20, but I think I have five or
Yeah.
six left
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
haven't smoked
Nice.
them in a while.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I got tired.
Gravitated away sometimes, right? It's like
No,
comes and goes.
I got tired of burning holes in my shirts from the tobacco coming out.
Huh. Oh,
And I
interesting.
went,
Yeah.
yeah, not. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I love I love sitting back. I mean, to me, you sit back with a cigar with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on the cigar you grab, you're controlling how long you're going to be sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had some great dialogues with people over a
Mm-hmm.
cigar.
Hmm.
It's just a beautiful
Definitely
way to connect.
magic. That's one
Yeah,
thing that those who have never smoked cigar will not. And I've just literally returned from the vacation. I was in the mountains, me and my girlfriend and cigar. That's the only company I need.
there
Had
you go.
most magical
Wait?
moments.
Does your girlfriend smoke cigars?
She did for sure. She did
Okay. Well, no,
when
I'm
I'm
asking
smoking. She
because
does. Yeah.
my wife and I met smoking cigars.
Really? Well, there you
Yes.
go. That's a
Yeah.
recipe for successful union, right?
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
hysterical
Man, I
because
would
her and I.
not be able to be with a woman who doesn't tolerate cigars.
Yeah.
It's
No. No.
just impossible.
It's funny because my wife and I. It's like one of us will look at the other and say, "You want to grab a cigar? Yeah, let's go get
Oh,
one right off
hell
the
yeah.
bat." Yeah. So
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's
but I
nice.
mean, it's serious. You got to make time for other people, but you also have to make time for yourself.
Hmm.
And sometimes they go hand in hand, and that's when it's beautiful. So
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
you know, um, and it's funny, but like you and I talking right now, I love. By the way, I'm going to compliment you. I love the way you're talking because it's not like an
Thank you.
interview. It's just we're bull crapping and having
Yeah,
fun,
yeah, yeah.
and it's just the way I would talk. Literally, I feel like I should have a cigar in my hand right
Oh,
now.
hell yeah. I'd love to if I
Just,
had now. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
ordering
that's
it
the
today
way it
for sure.
feels. Yeah.
That's nice. Do you have some local cigar like parlor where you go to? Or do you order them?
Well, there is a cigar shop here locally that I
Mm.
go to and hang out about once a week. But there's also a cigar company, which is one of the biggest ones on the internet called Cigar International.
Uh,
And it is only 40 minutes from my house.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone would say it's a curse. To be honest, I'm certainly happy that I don't got that privilege. I would be exceeding my budget every
Oh
day.
yeah, no, it's and that's the problem.
Yeah,
We'll go up there, and it's funny because the whole way up, my wife and I'll be like, "We have enough cigars. We're just going to go up and have a cocktail and a cigar. That's what we're doing,
no,
right?"
that
That's
ain't happening, right?
Yeah, I know. And then my daughter came with us one day, and she laughed at us because she's like, "Oh my god, Dad, you know you're going to buy more cigars." And I said, "No, no, I'm not." And I went in, and we had a cigar each, and we're drinking
Hmm.
drinks, and we're just having a nice laid back moment.
Hmm.
My daughter went in to go to the ladies' room. I went to go to the men's room. She came out. I met her at the staircase, and then went out to my wife with $130 in cigars and pipe tobacco. And
Hmm.
my wife said, "I thought you weren't buying anything." I said, "It was an accident." It was an accident.
Yeah, it's like you almost don't control yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
I know. Yeah. I used to be when I was only getting into cigars, I was a bit bitter about their prices. And then as I watched more videos about how they are rolled and made and all these specifics, these nitty gritty details of how they're made, now I want to pay more because I
yeah,
just know what stands behind that one thing that you're holding. That's whole art. How privileged are those guys? They probably don't respect. You've seen those videos how those Cubans, how they roll them and in the factories, they
yes.
probably don't appreciate their work as much as I would. I was literally thinking of starting a company here. I thought that would be a perfect job. You're listening to a podcast, you roll cigar, you always have one in your mouth, right?
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, you're surrounded by it. Probably ain't that healthy. Have you ever had any inner conflicts with smoking as it is? Because there are still some delusional people who claim that it is not as unhealthy as cigarettes. And I guess to a certain extent it isn't. Yeah, but
Your
to say that it
questions.
doesn't harm you is
To
probably
myself,
unfair.
I
Oh no,
wish I
I know it
had
probably does at some
that
level.
kind of curiosity.
I don't doubt
Hmm.
that.
When I was your